You want to see some speed? Watch this. Yo, catch. Now, I'm assuming that most of you watching this video already saw my initial review of the Made in Japan Mizuno Morelia Neo 3 Beta, which I'm just realizing is an extremely long name for a football boot. In that video, I go over all the details in terms of what has changed from the previous Morelia Neo 2 and Neo 2 Beta, in which the answer to that question is almost everything despite the boot looking very similar. Now from that video, which was about 20 minutes long, while I broke down a lot of different things about the boots, there are a bunch of questions that a lot of you guys had that weren't answered, and those are what I want to focus on in today's video. And as an example, I have here the latest blue and white colorway, which looks fantastic, and we now know the official retail price in the US for the Neo 3 Beta. It's $320 US, which makes it the most expensive football boot on the market right now, not including limited edition releases, which of course begs the question, is it worth the fairly steep price tag? That's exactly what I want to answer in today's video. So if you want to learn more about these, including how they fit and feel on feet, please stick around, watch the entire review. And if you are interested in a pair of these for yourself, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen, or you can click the first link down below. That's going to take you to the review page on my website, where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal retail price. If you guys do end up enjoying this video, please don't forget to support it with a like. And if you are new here watching for the first time and don't want to miss out on weekly content on everything football boots, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Very quickly, just to comment on the looks, obviously the Neo 3 Beta hasn't really strayed too far off the main design of the original Morelia Neo introduced in 2010. It still has aesthetically the same overall look, which I personally don't have a problem with. And in typical Mizuno fashion, this latest colorway is just clean, simple, and honestly pretty good looking. I think it's hard to hate on this. It's royal blue all the way through. The one little detail you don't really pick up on pictures is the leather here at the front, which has a little bit of a silver glitter effect on the surface, which looks quite good. Not a wearable finish, by the way. You have a detail of a little bit of pink with the Morelia Neo logo there on the back. The Mizuno branding has some blue streaks running through what is a white base, which obviously accents really nicely. And then the sole plate is mostly blue in color, with some gray accents and another pink accent there in the forefoot. And of course the stud tips are white in color. So it's a white and blue colorway, very straightforward, a little bit flashier than the launch white ones, although I will admit I prefer the look of those over these. Either way, it's a really good looking boot. As for the technical side of things, like I mentioned in my initial review, while this boot looks very similar to the models that it replaces, it effectively changes every single thing coming from the Neo 2 and Neo 2 Beta in one way or another. Of course, some of these changes are more significant than others. Also, what's different this time around is you have two different options as far as top-end variants of the third generation Morelia Neo, where at $320, you have the Neo 3 Beta. It's the most high-tech variant, if you will. And then at $290, there's a Made in Japan Mizuno Morelia Neo 3, a non-beta, if you will, which reincorporates a lot of the more traditional elements that we're used to seeing on the Morelia Neo line, like the central lacing system with a regular tongue and the synthetic leather through the midfoot. I have a pair of those on the way as we speak, so review on the channel coming soon. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on that. Talking specifically about the Beta 3, you're going to find that the upper is broken down into three main elements. You have your kangaroo leather section through the forefoot and toe box area. Through the midfoot and heel, you're going to find a textile-based synthetic material, and then running across the top of the foot, instead of the traditional tongue and central lacing system, the laces are still down the middle, but of course the upper is now a one-piece construction, which allows for a dual lace hole setup, and of course that central portion of the upper is filled in with an elasticated knit, as we see from so many football boots these days. Now, the leather itself, it's the exact same stitching pattern, although unlike the Beta 2, it reverts back to a double stitch rather than a single stitch, which ultimately is a better decision. Yes, I guess you add a little bit more weight to the boot, but the structure enhancement I definitely think is worth it. And the leather itself, I think it's even clear to see, is a little bit thicker than the Beta 2 this time around. The Beta 2 was super thin. 4 millimeters was the thickness of the kangaroo leather. This time around, it's 6 millimeters, which feels better in my opinion. The quality feels better in my opinion. It's nicer on the ball. It's certainly more comfortable on foot. And I think it's just a really smart change, especially from a durability standpoint as well, given the cost of these football boots. Through the midfoot, that textile mesh synthetic material is a carryover from the Beta 2, although it's definitely been beefed up a little bit this time around. This is definitely not as, I don't want to say flimsy because I think that's the wrong word, but it does feel a little bit more structurally sound, allowing for better responsiveness, certainly in comparison to the regular Beta 2. And then of course it saves some extra weight running through the heel area where you don't really need a super thick or heavy material for the sake of structure, especially given that they have gone with an external heel counter, just like past variations of the Neo. And then of course the one-piece construction to the upper and the knit through the midfoot. This is a controversial change, although it's not as controversial knowing that there is a regular version of the Neo 3 that still has a regular lacing system and a regular tongue, as we've seen on past variations. So if this is not your thing, go for that model. It's even going to cost you less money. But for me, given the concept of this boot where they're kind of taking the Neo 3 and making it as high-tech as possible without, again, destroying that core feeling of what makes this boot special in the first place, I think that this makes a lot of sense despite being basically what all of the other brands are doing, in that you don't have any overlapping materials. It makes for less bulk. You don't have the issue of the tongue sliding from side to side. I think that the dual lace hole system actually allows the laces to hold their tension a little bit better. And even with that, Mizuno have done a slight bit of innovation by adding a third lace hole that's a little bit lower down, where you don't have to use it, but if you do, it's going to allow the upper to kind of grab around the front part of your foot / front part of your ankle area a little bit tighter and really provide a ton of extra lockdown should you feel that you need it, depending on how you like your boots to feel or just how the boots fit you specifically. So having that option, I just think is a good thing. And as a whole, the upper, it's very well thought out. So from a touch standpoint, because it is a lot of the same elements just kind of reworked in comparison to past variations of the Neo, you kind of know what to expect. Does it feel different from past variations? Absolutely. But is it a night and day difference? Definitely not. What's nice though is the way that these fit and feel on feet. That to me is the highlight of this boot, where you'll notice the side profile is a little bit different, mainly in the toe box, where they've actually increased the volume of the toe box area, allowing for a little bit more expansion of the leather. And maybe that doesn't make a lot of sense for a speed boot that's supposed to fit really tight, but when you think about it, especially when it's a leather material that is naturally going to expand a little bit when put under tension, which happens when you put the boots on your feet, if they increase the volume ever so slightly without increasing the width too much, as it stretches out, it's going to get pulled down across the top of your toes without squeezing your feet. So because they kind of got the volume nearly perfect, I would say, the comfort and freedom of, I guess, the feeling you get when playing in these boots is unlike any other speed boot on the market right now. Moving to the heel area, it still has that distinct shape of being a low cut with these kind of sharp edges and then a little tail here at the end. The difference this time around is that those edges are made from a knitted material, including the flap, which I think is a huge improvement because I just felt like the slightly stiffer synthetic material they were previously using, it could catch you the wrong way and cause a little bit of chafing, which in turn would result in a blister, which is just annoying and unnecessary. This has no real structure to it, so it's there simply for the sake of looks and doesn't get in the way anymore. The edges, because they are knitted, you can see how they come to a little bit of a transition point here. It's supposed to be more comfortable, and admittedly, the sides of this ankle area does feel a little bit softer to me. So again, in terms of just out-of-the-box comfort, it's arguably a little bit better. Once broken in, it's not something you're really gonna notice. And then the heel liner, that's also been changed around a little bit in terms of them narrowing it slightly and adding a ton of extra padding. It's still made from this really nice suede material. So the lockdown in terms of it gripping your socks, along with the amount of padding, is fantastic. Definitely an above average heel liner. And again, it gives you this nice secure sensation when you have the boots on feet. And then as far as the insole is concerned, it's a little bit more straightforward than what we had before in that they no longer have that kind of gritty feeling to the surface in terms of the liner on the insole. It's now just a regular mesh, some perforations throughout, and a single layer of this white foam. So it's a lot more straightforward than what we used to have, but it gets the job done. And then as for the sole plate and stud pattern, there's a few bits of information that I didn't tell you about, and there's also a few observations that you guys made that I want to comment on. Now, the sole plate itself has been completely redesigned, even though it still looks very similar. It also still includes an external heel counter, which doesn't really feel different. It just looks a little bit cooler, I would argue. The sole plate, though, it feels a little bit more flexible and I think just flexes more naturally through the forefoot, but they've increased the rigidity through the midfoot and heel. So as a whole, it feels like a very slight improvement, but definitely similar to what we had before, which I don't really have any issues with. What a lot of you guys noticed immediately though is that this Neo 3 Beta does not have the rivets at the toe, where there would normally be 2 on the Neo 2 and Neo 2 Beta that basically reinforce the connection between the sole plate and the upper. That is the point of the rivets. It used to be a very common thing on all football boots. Mizuno was pretty much one of the last holdouts for that, but it now appears to be completely gone. Why is it gone? I didn't really get any reasoning from Mizuno, and I'm not sure that I will, but I assume that they just thought it wasn't really necessary. I'm not entirely sure if the rivets truly enhance performance. It's just kind of one of those old school things that only Mizuno was doing. I guess they feel like it's not necessary anymore. And from a durability standpoint, when it comes to the highest quality products in the realm of football boots, I don't think that there's anything better quality than a Made in Japan Mizuno product. So I wouldn't really be too worried about that not being an included feature. And then as far as the stud pattern is concerned, it's the same general layout, which I know a lot of people were a little bit disappointed with. Trust me when I say that the stud pattern is more aggressive than I think a lot of people would expect it to be based on how it looks, although I still understand why there are people that would like to see something maybe a little bit more mercurial-esque in terms of having a bladed stud pattern, but I feel like this stud pattern works well with what they've done with the upper, so I'm personally not mad at it. I did also mention that they changed the angle of the studs, or I guess decreased the angle ever so slightly. They used to be angled out a little bit more. They're now more straight up and down, which I assume accounts for the extra flexibility that they have in the forefoot. Again, the traction and feel of the stud pattern is better than you'd expect, but I didn't mention that the studs themselves are actually made from a harder plastic material this time around for enhanced durability, not so you can walk through parking lots, but if you do plan on wearing these on artificial grass, you can do that, and the studs should hold up better than what they used to on previous generations of the Neo 2. So for those of you that were asking if this is an AG compatible football boot, because they don't actually make an AG variation, they enhance the hardness of the studs on the FG stud pattern. I would definitely say that this is a safe layout to use on AG. So go ahead and use them on AG if that's what you want to do. And then when it comes to weight, the Neo 3 Beta statistically isn't that light. I'm going to show you exactly what I mean right now. This pair is a size 9.5 US. We'll throw them on the scale, and you can see that they weigh in at 7.3 ounces, the equivalent of 207 grams, which for a top-of-the-line football boot, especially one that costs $320, there are lighter options out there for less money from their main competitors. With that said, the combination of the overall weight of this boot, which is still pretty much right about at average, if not slightly below average for most top-end football boots, which are pretty light across the board, but when you combine the lightweight construction with the comfort and just natural feeling of these boots really disappearing on your feet, even though they are statistically not the lightest, because they're so comfortable, it feels like you're not wearing any boots at all, which in turn gives you this sensation of really light football boots. So it's kind of one of those things you have to feel for yourself. But if you're worried about these being on paper not as light as Mercurials, they feel just as light as Mercurials. So as you can see, I've swapped out the stock blue laces, which look fine, although for whatever reason, Mizuno insists on using these kind of chunky laces, considering how high-tech and low-profile the rest of the boot is. And I've changed them for some white and black grid pattern SR4U replacement laces. The pattern, I think, adds to the technical look of the boot. The white gives some nice contrast. This is actually one of my favorite designs of SR4U laces, period. It's a great way of changing up the style of your boots in a very inexpensive way. If you're interested in some for yourself, the website to go to is www.sr4ulaces.com. There'll be a little pop-up on screen as well as a link down below in the description. So if you're interested in some, be sure to go ahead and check that out. On feet, the Neo 3 Beta just feels special. I think what separates this boot from pretty much everything out there is the combination of the leather as well as this textile synthetic through the midfoot. The leather in the forefoot molds to your foot instantaneously. It's soft, it's flexible, it's super comfortable. It feels fantastic. And then the mesh through the midfoot in combination with the one-piece upper, it fits your foot very closely. It doesn't feel like it's squeezing or suffocating your feet like a lot of speed boots do, but they still feel very secure and also very responsive, which is exactly what you want from a pair of speed boots. The lockdown in the heel because of the liner, the material, the overall shape It's fantastic. The flexibility of the sole plate adds to the overall natural sensation. This is one of those football boots that once you break them in for about an hour or so, they truly disappear on your feet, which I can't really say about too many other football boots. In terms of width, they're definitely going to be wide enough for most people. That's one of the major changes that I think Mizuno have made in comparison to previous generations, where historically it's been a very tight, not necessarily narrow, but not really a wide foot friendly football boot. And while these aren't excessively wide by any means, I definitely think that they're going to fit most people very comfortably, as long as you like a snug overall fit. And then as far as sizing is concerned, that is the one thing that Mizuno has messed around with this particular boot. It seems to run half a size big. So I'm wearing these in a size 9.5 US, but I could honestly do with a size 9. So if you are looking to order a pair for yourself and you're coming from a previous generation of Morelia Neo, I would personally recommend going a half size down in order to achieve the best possible fit. So in conclusion, is the Made in Japan Morelia Neo 3 Beta the best speed boot that money can buy? And I think the answer to that question is no. And the reason why I say that is because I think if you're talking about the objectively best speed boot you can buy right now, in terms of just outright performance characteristics, aggressive traction, responsiveness, lightweight design, touch on the ball, which is a little bit more subjective than objective, but you get what I'm saying. The Mercurial Vapor 13 Elite or Superfly 7, pick your poison there, is still the best of the best in my opinion. It's a really difficult boot to compete against for any other brand. With that said, if we're talking about football boots in the speed boot category that I would prefer to wear, I would definitely pick the Made in Japan Morelia Neo 3 Beta over a pair of Mercurials, as much as I like those boots. And for me, it comes down to a couple different reasons. One, I just prefer the softness and touch on the ball provided by the kangaroo leather and the textile mesh versus the full Flyknit upper on the Mercurials. Not to say that it's bad, I just prefer this, which does feel distinctively different. Still barefoot, but definitely different. Also, the natural sensation of playing in these boots, the idea that I can put these boots on my feet and completely forget that I'm wearing anything at all, just focusing on playing the game because the boots are legitimately that comfortable, that is a feature that I think is way too overlooked in the modern football boot market. And there really isn't any other boot out there, aside from some of the more old school full leather stuff that I know isn't everybody's cup of tea, that this boot gets so right. And that for me is what sets it apart from everything else on the market right now, and the reason why you could justify the $320 price tag depending on what you're looking for. If you want a pair of speed boots that you can feel working, that feel distinctly different from other football boots in terms of those objective performance characteristics, buy a pair of Mercurials. If you want a pair of football boots that you can put on your feet and completely forget about, buy a pair of Mizunos. Anyways guys, that's it for my review. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. Again, if you're interested in a pair of these for yourself, either the blue or the white colorway, first link down below, that's going to take you to the review page on my website where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $320 retail price. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down below in the comment section and I'll do my best to get an answer out to you. If you guys aren't subscribed to the channel already, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.